all so much for braving the weather this morning, although I'm from the Midwest and we are not scared of a few inches of snow. So I know it wasn't too much of a task. In honor of the many faiths and traditions and backgrounds that comprise our wonderful Sangha, I would like to say, Merry Christmas, Kwanzaa, Hanukkah. Thank you. I had to practice that one a few times last night, but I think I got everybody in there. A friend asked me this week, my friend was like, so as a Buddhist, what exactly are you going to observe this weekend? And I'm like, I'm going to observe Christmas. And he's like, but you're Buddhist. It's like, we celebrate other people's birthdays. Why not celebrate the birthday of Jesus? Especially when Jesus was all about joy, peace, and goodwill to all. Some very, very wonderful common themes. So celebrate this birthday like I would anyone's, with tremendous joy, friendship, compassion, love, peace. And yes, gift giving and gift receiving, which we'll talk about a little bit today. Speaking of gift giving and gift receiving, the Christmas llama. A friend of mine was giving me a hard time. So that now that you're a llama, and I'm like, I'm not a llama. She gave me this, we have to be careful in our practice about judgment. So we don't call this an ugly Christmas sweater. In the Buddhist practice, we call this an unpleasant Christmas sweater. So I brought it along. I actually had it on a little earlier, but it's really hot. And so I decided to set it here and display it. So gift giving and gift receiving is something I'll touch on a little bit today with us together. My talk title today is Mudita, and it actually translates as sympathetic joy, but for the Western mind and Western ear, I think it's a little easier for us to say appreciative joy for several reasons. Number one, it relates a little bit more to our own joy, more so than sympathetic. And it's just a little bit more accurate of a term, simply appreciating joy and beauty in life and taking pleasure in other people's achievements, success, and happiness. Understanding that in the same way that when we feel pain, it feels so very alone. It is our pain all by itself. But in truth, it is pain that is felt by humanity. It is human pain. In the same way, joy is human joy. It's joy with a capital J. And that joy can be experienced, and that's what we're going to talk about, mudita. That joy can be experienced not only for ourselves, but for ourselves through and because of the joy of other people and their successes, their achievements, and their happiness. It's not just their joy. They're experiencing our joy as well, but that's kind of a difficult and a strange thing in the West for us to work with. So that's what I'm going to talk about a little bit today. I have a very, very short paragraph from A Path to Freedom, which is a section from the 1st century text. And it says this, it says, as parents who upon seeing the happiness of their dear and only child are glad, and they say, sadhu, sadhu, Sadhu basically means hooray, yippee, awesome, wonderful. In this way, one develops appreciative joy for all beings. Thus, should appreciative joy be known. The undisturbed dwelling of the mind in appreciative joy. This is called the practicing of it. Gladness is its characteristic. Non-fear is its function. Destruction of dislike is its manifestation. Its benefits are equal to those of loving kindness. When we look at the four Brahma Viharas, metta, karuna, mudita, upekkha, metta being loving kindness, and the third being mudita, or appreciative joy, sympathetic joy, they are two sides of the same coin. The difference is this: metta, or loving kindness, becomes compassion when it meets suffering. It becomes mudita when it meets joy. They are related. When we experience joy here in the West, there is a tendency to not truly appreciate the joy. Here's what I mean by that. When we experience joy, sometimes subtly, sometimes not so subtly, there will be little stories that pop up about how we do not deserve this joy. Worries arise that this joy is not going to last. Little schemes develop to keep the joy around, or we are simply too busy to even notice and truly appreciate the joy that we are experiencing. When we are around joy, jealousy may arise. Envy may arise. Resentment can show up. Her present's bigger than my present. Why is he getting this award? I work just as hard. These little voices, these little stories, these little ego trips going on in the back, they can be incredibly subtle. It may even just be a feeling that when this other person, everyone is going, oh my gosh, I just love all these qualities that you exude. You're sitting here going, well, I have the same qualities. Why is everybody not standing here exuding all over me? We say, I'm so happy for you. It's an easy thing to say. But what I'm talking about is truly appreciating, truly embodying, experiencing another person's achievements, successes, happiness, and joy, as well as our own, because it leads to experiencing our own. It is difficult to feel joy for other people when we are not content ourselves. So some of you know that I taught high school for about 22 years, and I was the director of a theater program. And I had set out to create the best theater program in the world. It was going to be top-notch, and we were going to win all these awards. And year after year, we would go to all the big awards ceremonies, and other programs would be getting awards. Oh, and I would seethe. There would be gnashing of teeth. In the early times, I just remember, oh, and I was really good at disguising it by saying, I want this for my kids. My kids worked harder than anybody else. My kids are just as talented as those other theater programs. But it was a disguise. I had placed, basically, my worth in my job, in my occupation. I was taking refuge, not in the Buddha and the Dharma and the Sangha, but in my occupation and my reputation as a theater director. I had become overly identified with all of that, and then therefore competitive. And had I been paying attention to my kids and my staff and other people in the group and not worrying about what's going on over there, perhaps things would have happened that would have been more pleasant for me in terms of awards and things like that. It's funny, a long time ago in my early teens, or my late teens and early 20s, I used to love to play darts. And I learned from, there are Buddhas even at the nightclub in front of the dartboard. But I learned from this old sage in playing a game called this is a musical. You guys didn't know that today, did you? A game called Cricket, I think it was called. And he told me, he says, never chase after the other player, because they're trying to get all the 20s, then all the 10s, then all the 5s, all the 1s. And as they would get 3 darts in each section, they would close that out. He says, never chase after them. Instead, go and close out the ones that you can close out, the easiest and the quickest. And by not chasing the other one, you would learn to actually be more successful at the game itself. And so I was able to, learn that lesson even back then, even though I didn't realize it was a lesson. Some of you know that I'm a singer-songwriter and have been for quite a bit of my life. And I used to go to nightclubs or open mics and different sessions, and I'd sit there and I'd watch these other singer-songwriters. I could do that. He's not that good. Yeah, my song's better than that song. His guitar playing, it's a little slow. Comparing mind, competitiveness. It brings up a lot for me to remember those days, sitting there, comparing, contrasting, and the whole time, what I know now, what I'm experiencing now is 180 degrees. It's a complete difference, because now I'm experiencing the joy that this other person is feeling, that this other singer-songwriter is expressing. It's not about competitiveness. It's not about what he can do that I can or cannot do, or she. It is about them expressing their joy. And in this way now, I too can actually experience their joy. That's Mudita. Sandy, would you let them know there's a service going on here? You're just right through there. I don't think they know. Just say, hey. They're right behind us in this classroom. Apparently there's a piano in there now. Comparing mind, comparing other people's talents, other people's skills, other people's achievements is a trap. It is a trap that keeps us from truly appreciating joy with a capital J, which means not only our own, but theirs as well. The Buddha said, with our thoughts we make the world. To experience another person's joy is to know our own. Look at the difference. when I was sitting there and I was experiencing comparing mind, being competitive, looking at their talents, skills, achievements, and successes, look at the thoughts that were being generated. With our thoughts, we make the world. My world became competitive. My world became comparisons. My world always, and what's funny is that when we compare, we always tend to notice the people who are better than us. And those take root a little bit more than the people who are not quite there yet. And then we feel lack. And then we feel inferior. And then we feel like we have a long way to go, the drudgery to get to some place. And then we lose sight of right effort. I had a friend say, but there's nothing wrong with competitiveness. It makes me work harder. Right effort is not against another person. They may demonstrate a faster time in the race, but then your goal becomes this time, not to beat so-and-so, not to outrun that person. It becomes a personal goal setting to try to achieve some desired outcome. And even outcomes, eventually we're able to let go of as we become present in the here and the now, and we try to be present with what is in our best and highest interest at this moment. The outcomes work themselves out. And then the competitiveness leaves, and we begin to enjoy our own successes as well as the successes, the joys, and the achievements of other people. The Buddha said, you have no cause for anything in this life but gratitude and joy. So, like compassion, this quality of appreciation is intrinsic to us, something to be simply developed and extended, not some amazing mystical experience that you're only going to achieve after 40 years on top of a mountain in Tibet. It's here, it's now. It is with us, and it is possible. Here are a few things that we can cultivate in our practice. Laugh. Laugh a lot. Laugh frequently. Share in the joy of other people. When they laugh at something that has made and brought them joy, you can laugh. It doesn't mean you have to understand what the joke was. Maybe you're laughing just because you're sharing their joy. That's enough. Bolster your sense of abundance by tuning in and truly appreciating the joy that you receive in nature. Hugging a tree, singing, dancing, being spontaneous, animals, babies, creativity, the plaza lights, an unpleasant Christmas sweater, moments of freedom from worry and self-absorption. The Zen teacher Thich Nhat Hanh said that sometimes joy can be the source of your smile, but sometimes your smile can be the source of your joy. And in the words of my dear friend Keith Rennie, Feliz Namaste.